Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 78 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by jazzsports.ag. For a 100% sign-up bonus, please visit Jazz Sports and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we have a fantastic week. It's Christmas week. Tomorrow night / Wednesday morning, we're going to have a Christmas episode with a special guest, Christmas episode part B. So very, very excited about that. This episode, we're going to go into a couple of bowl games for Tuesday and Wednesday, the 22nd through the 23rd. We're going to cover every single bowl game on our podcasts throughout college bowl season with plays, with leans, all kinds of great stuff, so you can have as much information as possible when making your plays. Great weekend of sports, and college football was a little bit down because Friday we lost our two bets, and Saturday was close to even, but Sunday in the NFL we went 7-0-2. And that's because we played two teasers and hit all 5 of our sides / totals. Really excited and happy about what happened in the NFL. Huge uplift to us. But when I'm talking about the weekend, it could have been way better because we lost some coin flips, like 5 or 6 coin flips. Usually you hit about half your coin flips, but happened to lose about 5 or 6 in a row was absolutely nuts that happened, And, for example, the Marshall UAB game, Marshall had ample opportunity to score at the end of the game. They absolutely blew it. USC had ample opportunity to tie that game at the end, force overtime. They absolutely blew it. That wasn't a coin flip, though. That was more of a loss. Baltimore, they missed like 3 or 4 free throws at the end and couldn't cover because of that. The other team made some shots for Baltimore, Maryland. That was unfortunate for us. I believe they're playing Albany. They should have covered. At the last second in overtime, Connecticut hit a garbage 3 to, instead of lose by 5, they lose by 2, and we had -3 for a large play. Massive coin flip right there. As far as the Ole Miss, down by 4, have the ball at the 25-yard line, plenty of time left, it's pouring rain. Corral fumbles the ball and gives it to LSU. LSU couldn't stop a high school team that day. and they just happened to get a fumble there. Blew that coin flip. That was a big swing. And that's going to happen. Unfortunately, that's going to happen. But either way, thank goodness for Sunday to make a great, profitable weekend for us. What an exciting couple days of basketball, too. Gonzaga versus Iowa was amazing. Rutgers winning straight up was absolutely amazing. We didn't bet that game against Illinois, but we, if you remember, we gave it out to premium subscribers at 33-1 for Rutgers to win the Big Ten regular season. I believe they only played Michigan State once, and maybe even Wisconsin just once. They have a very, very good shot at accomplishing that feat. So hoping that comes into fruition at the end of the season. Looking really good so far for Rutgers. That was a monster 33-1. And we'll be monitoring that throughout January and February, of course. So teasers are hot right now. These lines have been pretty sharp, but week 16 and 17 are a little bit complicated. You have your teams, and I'm talking NFL. You have your teams that are not motivated anymore. They just want the season to be over with and go fly to some beach. Who wouldn't if you're like Jacksonville? And you have teams that have to make the playoffs. They're trying their asses off, kind of like the Bears, right? Cardinals, Tampa Bay came back. Those teams trying extremely hard to make the playoffs. And then you're going to have your teams in week 17 that are just maybe the Green Bay Packers, if they win this week. And I believe just the Saints have to lose one of these games. I actually think they have the tiebreaker against the Saints. The Seattle's got to lose against the Rams. They get the bye, and they might start all the third stringers versus the Bears. So hoping for that big time. But you have to remember the Packers will be possibly playing some scrubs, and the same with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are in a situation where they might have a week off on week 17 where they can rest their starters because they secure home field advantage and secure the number one spot in the playoffs for the bye. So you have to definitely remember that. You also have to look at some coaches. Some coaches want to finish strong no matter what. That's a very important thing. You don't want to get in the way of coaches that want that final win. The Jets, can you believe it, beat the Rams? Biggest story of the weekend, obviously. Blew their number one draft pick. I believe Jacksonville gets it somehow. And now Jacksonville's in the road to get Trevor Lawrence. If I'm Jacksonville, I want Trevor Lawrence. I do not want to beat the Bears this week. I do not want to win another game. And I don't know if Doug Marrone's going to get that message because he's fired anyway, and I don't see why he would care. They've seemed to put up a good effort against the Vikings and some other teams, but at this point, when it's this close, I'm sorry. I don't tell the team that I'm going to try to tank, but I start playing the third stringers and I act like I'm trying to see what we have for next year. That's a much better excuse when it comes to tanking. So really interesting how it's going to finish out here for the number one draft pick. The Jaguars have the Bears and the Jets have this week, I believe, the Browns. They're going to be hosting the Browns. And so lots of questions on that game. They're in a massive letdown spot, but they also know that they don't have second. They have second pick anyway right now. Do they want to win against the Browns at home? I'm sure Adam Gase does. So very interesting spot for that team as well. Back to college football. I released my top 10 power ratings on Twitter at the Odds Breakers. And this is how it goes. I'll just quick go over the top 10 teams. And these are the top 10 teams by power rating. So, the college football playoffs don't quite match it because the college football playoffs don't use the true strength of teams because the committee doesn't know it. So you see, unfortunately, the committee looks at things like deserving, which is a very opinionated thing on who deserves what. Deserving, what does that mean, deserving? I think Cincinnati deserves something. I think Coastal Carolina deserves it, right? I mean, you have teams with one losses in the playoffs. They don't have any loss. What do you mean by deserving? You have Florida, which had a hard schedule. Had a bad loss against LSU, but that doesn't mean they're any worse than Notre Dame. It's just funny how they play their own politics and decide to put teams in, and they're not even the best teams. Why is a committee like that? A committee should be a committee of people that bet on sports every week and know who the best teams are. You can put whoever you want up there, but I guarantee Notre Dame's not going to be in it. I think Notre Dame is a very good team this year, but why would you want to watch them possibly get blown out when the spread is 19.5 points, and that thing's going to close at 21 at least, I'm telling you right now, against Alabama. It absolutely makes no sense. At least Florida was 17, right? At least Florida was there. It was something. And Florida, by the way, only lost by 7, 8 points that game. 7 points, I believe. Florida put up a fight against Alabama, covered the hell out of that spread. And people are saying that Florida's not as good as like Ohio State or something. I think Florida could be as good as Ohio State. I have Ohio State higher in my power ratings. But it's just such a small sample size with Ohio State playing a very easy schedule, right? They had trouble against Northwestern. But I can't downgrade Ohio State on my power ratings just due to that. How can I downgrade Ohio State when I started with them so high and they haven't really lost the game or been outgained? More importantly, you go by total yards, efficiency, more than points in power ratings. How can I downgrade them? Plus, they were missing their top receiver and another key receiver that game because of COVID and a few other guys. And they still beat Northwestern at the end. Northwestern's a tough team that punches people in the mouth. Yeah, so people commenting like, "Oh, why do you have Ohio State over Texas A&M?" Well, I started them much higher, and Texas A&M struggled against teams like LSU and Arkansas, got blown out by Bama. Yes, they beat Florida at home, but that happens. So it's not like they beat Alabama or Georgia. They played Georgia. So there's that. But going back to my top 10 power ratings, I'm going to go over them right now as soon as I pull them up. Sorry for the delay. We have Alabama number 1, and it's by a decent margin over Clemson number 2. I have Ohio State number 3, slightly under Clemson, a couple points. I have Florida at number 4 for sure, especially the way they play at Alabama. I have number 5, Notre Dame. That's where they belong. Number 6, Texas A&M. They deserve that. Number 7, Oklahoma. Oklahoma up and down. I think another quarter they could have lost that Iowa State game, but they were kind of playing more of a defensive, don't give up the win mind. Their whole second half, they jumped Iowa State. And there was another coin flip that could have been big for us because we had that 12-1 bet, but thank God we hedged it and profited 2 units like we went over last week with Chris. That's why hedging is so important. Why would you take a 0 when you've waited this long? Hedging is so important. Oklahoma number 7, Georgia number 8, North Carolina number 9. They handled Miami extremely well, if you remember that game. They're trending up. And Cincinnati, I have at number 10, Vienna power ratings. So those are my top 10 power ratings. If you have any problem with those, or if you want to try to make an argument, please tweet me at the Odds Breakers. That way I can go over exactly why it ended up this way, in this order. But anyways, we have a fantastic show for you today because D Nasty is back. We're going to talk about some fantasy football, and I'm going to cover some bowl games with you and give out, of course, our Monday free play. I'm going to start right out here, and for our show for Wednesday, I'm going to talk more about home field advantage during these bowl games, who has it somewhat and who's not. Home field advantage has to do with travel, playing in the same state, et cetera, things like that. Some fans are going to be at some of these games. Remember that. And we're also going to talk about some spots, some motivational spots. Some of these teams might not be motivated. So I'm really excited to get into that as well. College football championship week, misleading final scores. Buffalo outgained Ball State 499 to 439, yet lost 38 to 28, a 2-1 turnover ratio. Hurt Buffalo. Huge favorite they were. Buffalo was. And Ball State covered. I believe Chris Felica liked Ball State and gave that one out. So he did a great job on the podcast last week. Nebraska outgained Rutgers 620 to 252, yet only won 28-21, a 4-1 turnover ratio, and they barely got the cover. Loser for a couple guys on the pod, but I didn't take Rutgers myself. Rutgers has just screwed me over way too much in the past, and I thought Nebraska was just a better team. They did, although he did get BYU against Marshall, or UAB versus Marshall. That's another big one that Chris and Ralph both got on our show. USC outgained Oregon 358 to 242, yet lost 31-24. A 3-1 turnover ratio hurt USC, and a 9-5 penalty ratio really did them in. Iowa State outgained Oklahoma 435 to 392, yet lost 27-21. 3-0 turnover ratio killed them and costed me, like I said, a couple units on that bet. It would have been nice to gain. It didn't cost me the units. I just didn't get to gain the 6 units instead of gained 2 units. Next is motivational spots, but there are none because we are going to cover motivational spots for the bowl games. And, there's really no letdown spots when it comes to bowls. I mean, even if a team won their conference championship, that they might care about that more and care less about the bowls. That's something, but that's not exactly a letdown spot. So instead, we're going to NFL Week 15, misleading final scores, and motivational spots. Misleading final scores. Las Vegas outgained the Chargers 449 to 402, yet lost 30-27, a 1-0 turnover ratio, and some bad Gruden coaching calls. Hurt. Carr got hurt that game, of course, and that probably affected their mentality and the offense a little bit. But at the same time, they could have scored a touchdown to close this game out in overtime, and they didn't. And it was because of Gruden right there. Actually, was that pre-overtime? No, this didn't even go to overtime. It was at the end of the fourth quarter. That's what happened. So basically, Mariota had the ball, first and goal at the 5, and Gruden calls these awful 2 running plays up the middle to Josh Jacobs when frickin' the read option was killing it all day for Mariota. The Chargers' defensive end, Joey Bosa, was out. You're playing with a second-string defensive end. Read option. Mariota runs in, you win the game, we win our bet. We lost that one. That coin flip one was brutal. But at the same time, it's just weird to see Gruden get out-coached by Anthony Lynn at the end. I don't even know if he's like out-coached. It's just Gruden coached really bad too, I guess you'd say. I can't explain Gruden. I'm up and down on that coach. I think he's been overrated for sure his whole career, but he's got some good stuff about him. He motivates players. He loves the game so much. Eats, drinks, sleeps, drinks football, but he just does some dumb stuff at the end. San Francisco outgained Dallas 458 to 291. Huge. And lost 41-33. A 4-0 turnover ratio did them in. The Titans only outgained the Lions 463 to 430, yet won 46-25. The Lions had a 3-0 turnover ratio. Houston outgained Indianapolis 425 to 350, yet lost 27-20. A 2-0 turnover ratio hurt them. Washington outgained Seattle 353 to 302, yet lost 20-15. A 2-1 turnover ratio was the culprit there. And the Kansas City Chiefs outgained the New Orleans Saints 411 to 285, yet only won 32-29 and an even turnover ratio. You would have thought, looking at that, the Chiefs would have covered. I had the -3 big, but of course, as you know, we gave out the over, and we went 3-0 once again on our NFL free plays from the podcast. Real happy about that. Letdown spots. The New York Jets hosting the Cleveland Browns is a letdown spot after they finally won a game. The Dolphins at the Las Vegas Raiders after beating the rival, the Patriots, is a letdown spot. The Vikings now out of the playoffs could let down just because of that against the Saints. Real tough spot for the Vikings. Disheartening losing at home like that. Get up spots. Raiders hosting the Dolphins after they lost to the Chargers last week is a get-up spot. The Washington hosting the Panthers after they are trying to make the playoffs is a get-up spot. The 49ers will want to play spoiler against and get revenge at the Cardinals, I think. Shanahan always keeps them pretty motivated. Of course, you can always get the other effect that the Niners are not motivated and quit, but they're done. The Buccaneers can clinch a playoff spot with a win, too. That's a big get-up spot for them. The Saints are in a playoff revenge spot against the Vikings, so that's 2 strikes against the Vikings there. The Packers can clinch home field advantage hosting the Titans, so that's pretty big for the Packers. But that doesn't mean that it might not rattle them a little bit. Sometimes when it's a big situation, players sometimes regress a little bit. It's not always that they kick ass. Get-up spots I like to think of are more when teams are coming off after a loss. But I just wanted to mention that these teams can clinch, and sometimes you can see an extra motivation when they play. Look ahead spots. The Bears could be looking past the Jaguars to the Panthers or to the Packers. I doubt this. The Bears need every single win, but it's just one of those situations of a big rivalry. If they come out a little flat there after beating the Vikings, that would be pretty bad for them. The Cardinals could be looking past the 49ers to the Rams. It's possible because the 49ers have such a bad rap this year and the Rams are huge. The Cardinals need to win that game. The Browns could be looking past the Jets to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very possible that the Browns are looking past the Jets. That's an ugly game to bet right there. Let's get into our college football bowl plays and leans for December 22nd through the 23rd. And we're going to start on December 22nd, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Tulane versus Nevada, +3. The total is 56. This has to be the worst bowl in the entire nation. I mean, you have no fans at the game. I mean, you're Nevada. It's a little cold in Reno. You want to get somewhere nice, and they stick you in Boise, Idaho. Boise, frickin' Idaho, where everybody looks like Napoleon Dynamite. What a terrible bowl. Tulane, leaving some nice weather, and they have to go to Boise, where it's freezing at night, possible snow, blue turf. Oh, my God. I know I've never liked this bowl, and I probably talk about it every single year, how bad of a spot it is. Maybe it's because of the stupid blue turf that they want to make a bowl there and keep it there. But at the same time, these kids don't want to go to this place. More importantly, though, let's get into the game. My power ratings, I actually have Tulane a pretty big favorite, 6.75 points better than Nevada. I guess I'm more down on the Mountain West, and the AAC I think is the best conference. That's of the group of 5. Well, I guess the Sun Belt's pretty close now with Coastal, App State, and Louisiana, but I got them up there. This is the weird thing. Tulane's only a positive 0.1 yards per play, and Nevada is positive 1.1. And the schedule plays in. Tulane's definitely has a stiffer competition to gauge yards per play that much, but one thing is that it's going to be a little windy, right? It's going to be windy. And I think this game is going to be decided on the ground. They're calling for 17-mile-per-hour winds. That's pretty good. It's pretty fast for wind. Tulane's 5.0 yards per rush and only giving up 3.28 yards per rush. They have a very stiff defensive line. And Nevada is at 4.21 yards per rush and giving up 3.8. So that's a lean to Tulane. The only thing keeping me off it at 3 is the massive yards per play discrepancy. But I lean Tulane for sure here, -3, and lean under the 56. The Boca Raton Bowl, UCF versus BYU, -6.5 or 7-ish. The total on this is 73.5. This is certainly more of a home game for UCF, and they will certainly have some fans. Central Florida's still high-flying offense like we've seen before. Dylan Gabriel did a great job this year, but their defense is below average. A lot of guys sat out this year because of COVID and other reasons. BYU's really solid on both ends, and their only loss was playing against a bad, they had a bad game against Coastal Carolina. We all know that. My power rankings have BYU only a 4-point favorite here on a neutral field, but BYU is a monstrous plus 2.9 yards per play to UCF's 0.9 yards per play. That's a 2.0 yard per play difference. That's like double-digit spread stuff. But UCF, like I said, being an American Athletic Conference, has the harder schedule than the Mountain West. I think BYU is probably going to win this game, and they have a much better efficiency numbers. But I also know that Central Florida, they're a team that can backdoor lots of teams. They can backdoor a ton of teams. So I'm not running to the table to lay a -6.5 with BYU. And because of that backdoor, I actually probably lean the UCF right there because of that potential. BYU is a little bit exposed against Coastal Carolina as well. So, a lot of pressure on BYU to prove that they're that good. I lean UCF at the plus 6.5, and this total is getting really high. I'm going to lean the under at 73.5, and that thing keeps going up. I might have to play it. December 23rd, we have the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Louisiana Tech versus Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern -6. Total on this game is 49.5. Louisiana Tech is a team who lost a ton of guys last year, and it took a while for this team to develop and look decent. They finished their conference solid, beating UAB and North Texas, and they lost bad to TCU at the end. Georgia Southern, that option team that throws the ball every once in a while, amazing on the ground, 5.4 yards per carry, and they only give up 5.25 yards per play on defense total. My power rankings have Georgia Southern -8 on a neutral, but this is more of a home field spot for Louisiana Tech, and I have to give them a point for that, right? Another thing that keeps me off Georgia Southern is that Skip Holtz, 8-3 ATS in bowl games, which worries me some. So I'm going to lean Louisiana Tech actually at the 6 here. And if this gets to 7, I'll probably be playing them. So I have a lean on that. I have no opinion on the total here. And, keep in mind, home field advantage exists a little bit here just because it's a shorter travel and you might have some fans. And back to UCF, Boca Raton is only a few hours away. So next game, we have the Montgomery Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. You have FAU versus Memphis. Memphis is -8. The total on this is 50.5. So Memphis really took a big step back this year. They were not even one of the top 3 teams in the conference, right? FAU, on the other hand, also took a step back. They Willie Taggart, man, I am down on him. He had a couple good years over there at FAU, and then tried to coach at Florida State and tried to coach at Oregon, and it went really bad. FAU plays us really slow this year, and they struggle to score on offense. On my power ratings, I have FAU pretty low, and I have Memphis a high potential at -13.25. So this is going to be a small play, but both these teams are very disappointing, and what makes it not a bigger play is that they're both only 0.1 yards per play. That's really bad. I think that Memphis gets the margin here, though, but I just don't want to trust it too much. So this is your free play today. We're going to take Memphis -8. I'm going to wait a little bit. It's 1 star at 8, but I think we'll get a 7.5. We're going to make it 1.5 star premium shared play.
Oh, kiss your boots if you can do it. But to be the man, you got to beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here.
All right, my friends. Next episode, we're going to have a huge Christmas Part B episode with more bowl games plays and more NFL plays as well as some great information as usual. Let's get into our fantasy football with D Nasty. All right, now it's time for a little fantasy football championship week 16 with our guy, D Nasty. D Nasty, it's been a hell of a fantasy year, my man. We finally made it to the end, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a good year. Nail biter tonight for the Steelers and the Bengals, and it's coming down to one player to get me into my third Super Bowl here for my third league. So I'm hoping that works out for me tonight.
How far has the Steelers fallen, man? Losing to the Bengals right now. Holy cow! Oh man, they said this is our get it right game, and they're not even leading right now, and it's the fourth quarter. That's not good.
No, down 24-17. They just scored actually, but yeah, not looking good for the Steelers.
Speaking of not looking good, my fantasy teams in the playoffs kind of blew it out of my two teams that have made the playoffs. Won the first week, had the bye with the first week, and then happened to play the guy that scored the most points in both leagues. And I got to tell you, it sure as hell didn't help when Derek Carr went out for me on Thursday. I mean, that was hard. It sunk me. Like, you're watching, and you're like, Carr's got to get some points here. Gets to the freaking goal line, runs, and his groin goes out. And he's out for next week, too, it looks like. And you can just imagine how my hopes and dreams of winning my league this year went completely in the gutter, Dave.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling when someone gets hurt and you need that guy to do well for you.
You know what's even worse? I had the mental stress of benching him over Russell Wilson, okay? And then I had to wonder, it's hard to bench your studs. And if you have to have a damn good reason to do it, right? Otherwise, you're just killing yourself. At least I was right because Russell Wilson scored like 13 fantasy points or something. It was really low. So I was right to do that move. But the fact that he went out with the injury against the weak-ass Charger defense freaking sucked. I lost by 34 points. So even with Russell Wilson, I probably, I definitely would have lost. There's a couple other things that happened, like Mostert. Oh, he got hurt again, Dave.
That's your boy.
You can't predict these injuries, but he's been a China doll all year, so I am done. I'm off the Mostert train completely, but at least he went. At least I had Wilson on the bench, and he went to save me either because he only got like 6 or 7 points over Mostert. For some reason, they couldn't run the ball against Dallas. San Fran's looking pretty bad right now, but I'm playing for third place in both leagues, so going to get some more money from my regular season finishes. So I'm at least happy for that, man.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
So let's go over our key injuries. Dave, I'll let you start.
All right. Well, a couple key ones actually for next week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be out for the next couple games with an ankle injury, as will Cam Akers. Two big starters actually for the fantasy Super Bowls for you this week. They will both be out this week. So definitely pick up the replacements if they're still out there, or plan accordingly for a different running back.
What's wrong with Cam Akers?
Ankle as well.
Ankle. I think Helaire was hip.
No, he was ankle too.
Okay. It said hip on the article I read.
They said it was both, actually. So neither one of us are wrong. They listed it as both, but they said that he's not playing at least the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Next.
And then we also have Treycon Smith, wide receiver for the Saints. He left. And then Michael Thomas is actually out too. He was scratched with ankle injury and placed on IR, so no Michael Thomas the rest of the year as well. Another huge injury. So that's going to be a big blow as well to many people. No Michael Thomas for the rest of the year. And then we do have a few other small injuries here. A couple tight ends left games. Gerald Everett left. Richard Rodgers left with a shin injury. And then we had, actually another big one was James Robinson left the game this week with an ankle injury as well. So definitely keep an eye on him. He may not play this week. And then we had one other key one here, DJ Dallas, who you're probably not playing anyway, was cut off with a right leg injury. So those are the most major ones. There was a couple IDP, and Max Williams, a tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, actually left as well. So those are the major injuries for this coming week.
Yep, absolutely. James Robinson last sprained ankles here. Raheem Mostert was a sprained ankle too, dude. So he's I would not start him. I don't even know if the 49ers are going to play him this week. Why would you? I mean, their season's done anyway. At least he's a speedy guy that can be healthy for next year. I think that's kind of what you want. Why put a banged up guy in risk, even a bigger injury? Because whenever you have an ankle injury, you don't notice yourself doing it, but you're actually putting more pressure on your knee because you're trying to make up for that injury, and it goes vice versa, depending on what's hurt, and that could give out a lot quicker. So not good.
Definitely, yeah. And then that's actually the same injury he was on IR with as well. So they'll definitely be careful with that, I think, as well.
All right. Well, let's get into the waiver wire then. And I have Jeff Wilson for the Mostert injury. He's got a nice matchup versus the Cardinals this week, too. Definitely pick up Jeff Wilson if he's on waivers. Darren Williams for the Edwards-Helaire injury and Le'Veon Bell for the Edwards-Helaire injury. A lot of people dropped Bell because he wasn't getting a lot of fantasy points. He's picked up right away, but some teams dropped him. And I think that, both those guys are going to get some points this week. Marcus Mariota for the Carr injury. Now, if you're desperate, he can get you some points on the ground. He's going to do a lot of read options. If Gruden actually gets his head out of his ass and runs the read option on the goal line like he should have last week, Mariota should be able to put up some good points for you. Zach Pascal did very well last week for the Colts. He's found the end zone, and he had a night or a day yesterday. Really think he's going to be a potential flyer this week. And Russell Gage had a great fantasy week, scoring like 15 to 17 points. And Julio Jones might be shut down for the year too. So make sure you grab Russell Gage. I grabbed him. I didn't start him. I wish I did, but he only gave me a couple extra points over the guy that I actually started anyway. But Russell Gage, he's definitely should be owned, in my opinion, with Julio out. Who are your waiver wire, Dave?
Yeah, I like those definitely, especially the Wilson one. I don't think Mostert's going to play this week with ankle injury. But Jalen Hurts, we talked about him last week. He had a monster game this week. He blew up and had 37.82 points for fantasy. He had 383 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 61 yards rushing, and another score on the ground. Mm-hmm. So if he is still available. He's only owned in 38% of leagues right now. Pick him up. He will help you win your Super Bowl this week if you pick him up, or your third-place game. If he's still out there, he's definitely a game winner this week. And definitely maybe for Dynasty Leagues, even be the starting quarterback next year there. We'll see. Another one, late scratch, Ezekiel Elliott was a surprise scratch at the last minute. I picked up Tony Pollard in one of my leagues. I did not start him. I wish I had. Mm-hmm. But he did have 12 carries for 69 yards, 2 TDs. Along with 6 catches for 63 yards. So he had a monster game as well. Put up a little over 30-plus fantasy points. So if Zeke doesn't start this week, Tony Pollard could be another guy that'd be a difference maker for you this week. Jeff Wilson and Le'Veon Bell, definitely 2 guys that we had talked about that I definitely like as well. Salvon Ahmad for the Dolphins had a huge game as well. He's starting with Myles Gaskin out. He had 23 of the 38 carries, had 122 yards and a score. So definitely a guy you want to pick up. He could help you win this week as well if you need that guy to put you over the edge or need a replacement.
Right, but Gaskin might be back too this week from COVID, so we'll see.
Yes, definitely on that. So, Emmanuel Sanders with Thomas out and Treycon Smith out. Emmanuel Sanders is a guy you're going to want to have. He had 4 balls for 76 yards this past week, so definitely pick him up if he's out there. Alan Lazard, he's actually looking better now as well. He played most of the snaps at wide receiver over MVS. He had 6 targets, and then he had 4 catches for 56 yards. So he's coming on now, too. He's getting a little bit healthier now. Lynn Bowden, Devontae Parker didn't play this past week. He's another guy we talked about last week as well. He only had 37 yards this week, but they are looking his way, and he did have a nice amount of targets this week. He led the team with 7 grabs and 6 targets. So he's now gotten 16 targets over the past 2 games. So definitely a guy you want to pick up. And he's eligible at wide receiver and running back, which is huge. So definitely take a look at him. And then if he's still out there, he is owned in high percentage of leagues. But Logan Thomas, if he is out there for any reason, he had a monster game this past week as well with Haskins at quarterback. He had 15 targets, 13 catches, and 101 yards. So
wow.
If you need Yeah, he had a monster game. So PPR leagues, he would have won it for you this week if you're in a PPR league. And then a defense to stream this week, just to think about, Houston Texans. Even though they are a very bad defense, they will be hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, and they will be seeing either Ryan Finley or Brandon Allen. I don't think they're going to play as well as they're playing this week against the Steelers. So definitely a team you can look at streaming for defense. Others would be considered would be Chicago or Washington. Both defenses probably their own, but Washington's only owned in 34% of leagues right now, though. So they're playing Carolina, so definitely one you could stream as well.
And the Browns playing the Jets. So good call there, man. And the Jets finally got off the schneid, but I think they have a chance that they could let down a little bit against the Browns. So always a potential spot there. Like it, man. Let's go to non-starters trending up for Week 16. Dave, why don't you start?
A couple guys I do like this week are the Saints at the Vikings. I do like Emmanuel Sanders, who I was just talking about. I do like him and Latavius Murray against that poor Vikings defense. They can't really stop anyone right now, so I do like that matchup. The Buccaneers, I do like Antonio Brown. He might be a sleeper this week. He had his first touchdown this past week. So definitely a guy you want to take a look at starting against the poor Lions defense. Cardinals, definitely like Christian Kirk. Kenyon Drake, I like against the 49ers. They're not really looking that good as well. We just talked about previously here. I do like that matchup as well. The Dolphins, if Ahmad does start or Gaskins is back, I do like both those running backs against the poor Raiders defense. I do like Tua this week as well. He's probably not started in a lot of leagues, but he could be a game winner this week against the Raiders. So I do like that matchup as well. I do like the Chiefs against the Falcons. You're already starting most of the Chiefs already, but maybe McCall Hardman might be a good play this week. He'd be a sleeper this week against the poor Atlanta defense. The Bears, David Montgomery. If he's not being started, he should be started in all leagues. His last 4 games have been huge. He's been playing like a monster the last couple of weeks, so definitely plug him in. Big sleeper, Giovanni Bernard. He's actually playing a poor defense this week in the Texans, so he might actually have a great game as well. So definitely a guy you want to take a look at as well. The Ravens this week, Gus Edwards and Dobbins. I like both of those guys against the poor defense of the Giants. Even though the Giants has been playing good on defense, I still like those guys who like to run the ball a lot against the Giants. The Browns, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, both. You're starting Chubb already, but definitely Hunt could be a sleeper this week against against that poor Jets defense. And I do like Eagles this week. Miles Sanders, he's struggled the last week again as well, but I definitely like him, and I like Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys too. I'm telling you, Jalen Hurts is a starter this week. And then I do also like this week, I like the Bills against the Patriots. I like Devin Singletary and Moss at running back against the Patriots.
All right, man. Good stuff there. Like all those. I'm going to move into, I have some of those. Miles Sanders versus a Dallas's poor D. I think the Eagles are going to try to put one on Dallas. It's a huge game for both teams, really. Le'Veon Bell, like you said, for the Edwards-Helaire injury is huge. Jeff Wilson's trending up for sure. Obviously, an easier matchup versus a bad Cardinals defense. David Johnson versus the Bengals D is definitely one. I like how you said Houston Texans defense earlier. David Johnson's one. Cleveland Browns, like I said, versus the Jets D is trending up. Their defense hasn't been great this year, but they're definitely a flyer this week to win your fantasy championship. David Montgomery versus Jacksonville's horrible defense. So, yeah, I like David Montgomery for sure this week. Leonard Fournette versus the Lions' terrible defense. Cooper Kupp versus Seattle's bad pass D. And I also like Tyler Higbee here because Everett is injured. We didn't really mention Everett. He, he's not that big of a fantasy guy, but it just gives more touches to Tyler Higbee, and I think he can get a touchdown this game against Seattle. Jarvis Landry versus the Jets. That's a good one. Darnell Mooney, you've been mentioning him a lot. This is the first time I mention him. I like him a lot versus the Bears play the Jags. That's who has this horrible for the Jaguars. They're in awful injury protocols right now. They have a lot of guys out. Darnell Mooney could have a great game, and Mitch Trubisky quarterback for the Bears, has been lighting up the scoreboard, Dave.
I like both those guys, actually. I like Mooney and Trubisky this week. I forgot to mention Trubisky, but I do like him as well. Even for pickups, I was going to mention him, but I think he's rostered in a lot of leagues now after the last couple of weeks.
And on a side note, Dave, I might be a bigger Packer fan than you this week because if the Packers clinch home field this week, because Seattle could lose to the Rams, and I'm not even sure if Seattle would get it anyway if they win, that means the Packers are not going to start their starters against the Bears, and the Bears just got to get by the Jaguars, and the Cardinals just need to win or lose one of these games versus the Niners or at the Rams. So can't believe the Bears are on a little comeback here. That is just an interesting change, man.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting change. So it would just be wonderful if your Packers would let my Bears into the playoffs. Pretty please, Dave, please.
Well, first, the Vikings got to beat the Saints, so we're guaranteeing home field for sure. Or we both got to win this week, otherwise the Saints and the Packers.
Well, the Packers beat the Saints, so they have the tiebreaker. So
yeah, we're one game ahead, so we still have to win this week, though. After this week, I think we have it clinched.
Right, I think you win this week against this. That's why I'm a big Packer fan this week. Move into bus. DeAndre Swift versus Tampa Bay this week. I hate his matchup. He's kind of banged up. Chris Carson versus a pissed-off Rams. I do not want to start too many Seattle players against the Rams D this week. What a tough spot. I might even be benching old Russell again. Cam Akers, running back, versus Seattle's run D. Like you said, but Cam Akers is hurt. And when I wrote that down, I forgot that. Is he out next week, or is he day-to-day?
Yeah, sure. So definitely Devery Henderson or Malcolm Brown. Devery Henderson is probably the guy you want to, or Dale Henderson is the guy you want to own. So that's another pickup this week that we forgot to mention, that Henderson is definitely a pickup this week for sure.
Yeah, if he's out there. He was owned in most leagues, though. That's why we didn't mention him. So Darrell Henderson, I'm going to change that too. Dalvin Cook versus a pissed-off Saints. This is interesting here. Yeah, I mean, Cook's one of the best running backs, so you might have to start him anyway. But the Saints are not only coming off a loss against Kansas City, they're also coming off that loss from last year in the playoffs against the Vikings. So you have a revenge spot here for the Saints. I think they're going to be stuffing the Vikings this week.
And they were actually giving Mahomes fits last week. Mahomes still had a good game, but they were definitely giving Mahomes fits. So just thinking what they're going to do when they're pissed off and they just lost to a poor Vikings team. Yeah, Cousins and Cook, I would definitely downgrade both of them.
Oh yeah, James Conner, he's playing, I believe. Or no, he was scratched. He was scratched tonight, but he could play next week. Yeah, he could play next week, and I'm gonna remove him against the Colts D. DJ Moore against Washington's D, and Washington's D's become a force this year. I don't like Teddy Bridgewater or DJ Moore this week in these matchups. T.Y. Hilton versus Pittsburgh's pass D. I loved T.Y. a couple weeks ago, and he won some playoff games for us, but we got to downgrade him this week. But what I will say is Pittsburgh has been sucking lately, so that could change. But as a matter of fact, Pittsburgh might lose this game. 20 seconds left, and the Bengals are about to score again. So there you go. Justin Jefferson as well as another Viking that I hate against New Orleans D, my man. Well, there you go. It looks like the Bengals are going to beat the Steelers, Dave.
Unreal.
Really mind at all. I like seeing the nice upsets like this. Good for the Bengals, actually.
I can't believe it. It's just been so bad for the Steelers. Now they are definitely out of home field, and I wonder.
Division now. The Browns actually could still win the division now.
Oh my God! And I have this bet on the Browns to win the division too. So I have them winning second or first. So I'm in good I'm in good shape right there. Let's get into your bus.
All right, sounds good. I do like you said, do not like the Vikings this week against the Saints. So downgrading all those Vikings that you mentioned as well. I'm not going to go over them again. Lions as well. Whoever starts at quarterback, I think Stanford should be back, but definitely downgrading him and Swift and whoever else is at running back, AP. Then also downgrading Carolina Panthers. Washington defense has been playing awesome this past week. Chase Young's been on a tear. Definitely downgrading Teddy Bridgewater. Hopefully CMC is back, but I'm not putting any stock into that. So Mike Davis, definitely downgrading him. He's not the same level as CMC. Definitely downgrading the Steelers' run D against the tough Indianapolis D. And Big Ben. Big Ben has struggled the last 2-3 weeks, and Indianapolis has an even better defense than the Bengals. So I'm definitely downgrading him as well this week against that tough defense. James Robinson, if he does play, definitely downgrading him against the tough Chicago Bears defense. I think they've been playing well as well. Giants, I'm definitely downgrading Colt McCoy or Daniel Jones, whoever starts against the Ravens. Ravens have been playing well the last couple games. Downgrading them as well. Like you said, Seattle, I don't like any of them. I agree with you on that against the Rams. I don't like that matchup. The Bills, I'm actually downgrading Cam Newton. He hasn't been playing very well. And the receivers there, too, and their running backs. I don't like any of them against the Bills. Tough D. Bills pretty much have clinched their division, so and a playoff spot. So, but I think they'll still be playing tough against the Patriots. So those are the ones I'm downgrading right now.
All right, man, I like it. And the Bills, yeah, they're gonna. The Patriots are in shambles here, so I think the Bills are gonna have a good game personally. So, Cam, he's just when he's behind. He is not a good quarterback to have. He just can't throw the ball well. He's great when he's ahead because he can dink and dunk his way and run clock. But when he's behind, he's just not good. So there you go on that one. Let's get into our nasty sleepers, Dave, to win the championship for fantasy football. And I'm going to give you mine first. I'm going to start with I'm going to give you David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. I don't know what the hell the Bears did. Well, I do know they put in some new linemen there that came off the practice squad, and they happen to be better than some of the guys they had in throughout the year. They're playing completely gelled together. It looks like they've been like this for years. You know, they're not making mistakes. The holes are opening up for Montgomery like they've never done before. I am actually completely shocked of what I've been seeing here. And he's kicking butt, and they have a great matchup against the Jaguars this year. I can see David Montgomery getting over 100 yards. And plus, Cordero Patterson is injured. He wasn't worth mentioning because no one starts him. But that just gives David Montgomery more starts this week. He's my nasty sleeper this week, Dave.
All right. It hurts so good. But I'm going with Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys. He's going to definitely be a league winner for you this week. Pick him up and plug him in if he's out there, or start him if you got him on your bench. He's going to help you win the Super Bowl or your third place game this week. So Hurts so good, but Jalen Hurts is going to take you to the Super Bowl and to the money land. So definitely start him if you got him, or pick him up and start him if you got him, because he's going to be my D-Nasty sleeper of the week this week.
Oh man, I need that soundbite. Hurts so good, my man. We need to find that one. All right. Well, that's all the time we have, Dave. Thank you so much for a wonderful fantasy year, coming on every single Monday night to break down all of these matchups. I really appreciate it very much. You've done such a great job in fantasy. I'll be texting you throughout the week, throughout the year, as usual. I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a very Happy New Year.
You too. Happy Holidays as well, everybody.
All right, that was our guy, D Nasty. Make sure, if you have any questions, to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your week. Go win your fantasy football playoffs and go get some winners.